Welcome back to the Vanessa G Fitcast. I'm Vanessa Pozos, and here with me is Omar Pozos, my co-host and husband. How you doing, Omar?
I'm a little all over the place, if that makes any sense. We've got just a bunch of stuff going on, and so I feel a little stressed and busy, but we're hanging in there.
It's like the birthday season right now.
I
We
know,
had your
seriously.
birthday, and then my birthday, my mom's birthday,
Yeah.
sister-in-law's
We're doing
birthday.
a birthday bash for Vanessa's birthday and her family's birthday on Saturday, and we're doing some like hibachi, which I actually have heard it's really cool, but I've never done it. So very excited for that. But with us being out and, just being a little bit more focused on like you and I think work has kind of caught up with me. And so now I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got to get everything back in place. So we're hanging in there. How are you?
I'm doing well. I feel like, it's one of those seasons where there's so many good things happening and lots of excitement, lots of fun, lots of play.
Yeah.
But with that, like when there's a lot of good things and a lot of like play and excitement and fun, I feel like there's less time for rest. So it's like we're in that season where we're, I'd say like pushing ourselves hard, but it's just like for a season, it's for good reasons, and it's actively a choice.
And I think you've kind of shared this before. It's kind of like what is the analogy when you're like juggling a lot of balls in the air? Like when you focus more time and effort into one, like a couple of other things are very much going to drop. And again, that's just life because you can't give 100% to every single area of your life. I don't like it. I'm like, what do you mean it's supposed to drop?
Yeah, that's the struggle of humanity. We want to do all the things well all the time and not have to put down any of the balls that we're trying to juggle. But speaking of that, I think that's actually a good segue into our episode where really this episode is for the women who, I definitely was this woman. I have a tendency to still become this woman. And a lot of the clients who we work with, a lot of the women who come to us are in this position as well. And this is probably that woman who does want to juggle all the balls and want to do everything perfectly well. But ultimately, this is typically the woman who has a lot of stress on her plate and probably has been experiencing stress for many years. And at this point in time, most of the time, this is actually the woman who would say she's not stressed because of the fact that her body has really started to numb her to the feeling of stress because it's something that she's experienced so much of it over time. And so what I want to talk about in this episode is why working out is a really just terrible way to manage your stress and how if you continue in this pattern of using exercise as a form of stress management, you will likely become this woman who is at this point no longer even perceives herself as being stressed because her adrenals are taxed. She has taxed her body to where her body is now like numbed over to that feeling of stress. And she doesn't really feel stress, but yet it shows up in the signs and symptoms within her body. Or you may already be this person and you may still, even though you're like, I don't really feel like I'm that stressed, you might still have this pattern of during the times where you do perceive yourself to be stressed, you still are like, oh, well, I'm going to go work out and I'm going to feel so much better afterwards. And we're going to talk about why that's actually not the best route and not actually doing your body any favors right now.
Can I, because I know you get this question a lot in the DMs and we get it too when we speak a lot of the ladies that are inquiring about coaching and everything. What are some of the symptoms that you noticed for yourself when you were at that place where like hormones were not in a great place? You mentioned, cortisol and adrenal fatigue, and we talked last episode on how cortisol can then become cortisone. But when you were in that place in your body, you were still trying to work out. Like, what sort of things did you notice? What sort of symptoms were you struggling with at that time?
The ones that were the most just like prevalent for me that like immediately jump out in my memory, because even like when you first asked that question, what's funny is I feel like I've moved so beyond that place now where it takes me a minute to like recall how did I feel.
You almost like blacked it out in your brain. I'm like, I don't want to be there anymore.
Seriously. But the two things that I truly will never forget how it felt because it was so difficult was just the like bone crushing fatigue that I felt. I could sleep as much as I possibly could and I would still just feel so tired all the time. Like I needed caffeine to keep going. And it was like,
how much caffeine were you drinking at one point, babe? Not to put you on the spot.
Like at my worst, probably like 700 milligrams of caffeine.
Oh God.
Like probably like a venti cold brew from Starbucks, which is I think like 300 milligrams or something. Probably like an energy drink that was like a 300 milligram caffeine energy drink. I don't even know, but probably days like that. And the reality is when I was drinking that much caffeine, then I just felt sick too at the same time. So it was like this trade-off of, do I like turn to the caffeine to give me enough like stimulus to be able to do the thing that I'm like, I have to do this. I have to get my work done. I have to do these things. Like, okay, let me just crack open an energy drink to push through right now. But yet like I would feel, my body would feel icky. And a big part of that is because my adrenals were so taxed that it's just like even adding the caffeine to the mix, it's kind of like you're squeezing this like dried out sponge and being like, just got to eke a little bit more water out of this thing, but it's already dried out. You haven't let it actually replenish and get like water back into the sponge and fill it out before you squeeze it again. So that was a big one, was that fatigue. That was just so hard. But like pairing with that was the brain fog. I always just felt like there was just like this filter over my brain to where I could not think clearly at times. And it was actually stressful because there'd be times where I would be like in a conversation with somebody and I just felt like I'd be like forgetting words. I couldn't even like follow the conversation fully. And it was really, really hard.
Do you want to, or can you talk a little bit more about some of the inflammation that you kind of saw? Because I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, you've shared the story of how you were working with your coach at the time and you were starting to kind of prep for like our wedding and started to do that. And you're like, okay, well, my body's not responding at, I forget how much you were eating. And then you decided to go into a deeper caloric deficit and yeah, share your experience there.
Yeah, I think so that wasn't even like the wedding time period, because that was like, once we were prepping for the wedding, that was at that point where I was like, I have to set body composition goals aside here of like, I just want to feel like a human on my wedding day at this point. So I was purely working on my hormone and gut health at that point. What I think you're recalling is prior to that, so where I really dug myself into that deeper hole, was when my body first started just like putting on body fat in ways that didn't make sense to me, because I was working out a lot. I was, training hard 5 days a week. I was still like meticulously tracking my calories and macros and making sure I was eating, just at maintenance or even below maintenance. And I just was like putting on body fat, and like month over month, I was kind of looking at myself and I'm like, I look softer and it's not making sense. And so I would be like, okay, maybe I just need to I need to dial the quality of my food in a little bit more, eat a little bit more clean. It still wasn't making a difference. Like, okay, I need to cut. I need to go in a calorie deficit, cut my calories, do a little bit more cardio. And I did that for maybe 2 months and I looked worse. And that's when things really started to actually flare up bad. That's when my gut got really bad, to where I was having, stomach issues, felt like I couldn't eat anything without some serious stomach problems. But the inflammation that you're referring to too, like even like I look back at photos from me like really putting on even like true body fat, and like to where my body comes in, I can look at like my the data I still have from like my weights on the scale, and my weight was not much different from what it is now, maybe a 5-pound difference or so. And yet in like my body composition, fairly similar before I started to like really put on the body fat. My face was very round, and even like especially in some photos, I could really see that my belly was like really filling out. Those are really signs that cortisol is not in a good place. We'll typically see those two places really starting to have more of that propensity for adding body fat. And then as a whole, it just always looked like it like if you looked at the progression of photos of me, which there was a time period where I was like stopping even taking photos because I was just like, don't like the way I'm looking right now.
Right.
It looked a little bit like I was just kind of blown up like a water balloon a little bit, like just like not hard like a balloon, but squishy like a water balloon. But it's just like I looked puffy across my body. So those are definitely signs that, your adrenals, which are the glands that produce cortisol, were not in a great spot. And so with this episode, I really want to talk to that woman who is in that pattern, to where maybe you have always just used exercise, working out, the gym as a form of stress management. It might be a pattern that you've had for a long time. Maybe it was something that started when you were a teenager and you were in sports, and when you'd have like your teenage life stress, it'd be like, but like my sport and going and like pushing myself in the field was like a way to clear my head. Maybe in your corporate career or whatever your career is, it's like when you have a hard work day, when things are stressful, you're like, but if I go to the gym, I get my workout in, it's like it's my me time. It's my time where I can just go and like feel like myself, kind of like just tune out the world and just be really like, kind of quiet my thoughts down. And it feels very relieving for you in that way. And it makes sense. Like you're not being irrational for leaning into that and for having that like connection. It's served you probably at periods of your life, and it's probably been beneficial for you in many times. But I really have seen a pattern where I think it has been celebrated in many of like our generations.
Like hustle culture?
Yeah, like very much like hustle culture of like celebrated that when you're like stressed and everything, just like go and grind in the gym and like use that. Like there would be like memes created of like the gym is my therapy. And gosh, I'm telling you, like anybody who was posting the gym is my therapy in like 2015 is definitely now in a place of
You're
adrenal
like, now
fatigue.
come talk to me because I could probably help you out.
And I say that because I've been there. I'm pretty sure I was that person. But the reality is, eventually, your body is going to become out of resources because the gym, working out, it requires resources. Your body, if you're in this place where you are starting to, honestly, I would just argue if you've been in a place for a long time where you have always used working out, exercise as a form of stress management, whether or not you relate to even like any level of the symptoms that I explained that I've experienced, you probably are on the path, if you're not there already, towards low cortisol. And it might be low cortisol at certain points of the day. It doesn't mean that you're completely bottomed out across the board. But the reality is you're probably getting to that place where your cortisol is low. And the thing is, working out, especially working out intensely, if you're someone who leans towards more high intensity workouts, more cardio, or even just like lifting weights, like in a really intense, like go push yourself hard way, that requires energy. It requires energy, and cortisol is one of the main hormones that helps you make that energy. So when you are doing that, when you are exerting your body in the gym in that way, when you're going to your workout class, when you're going on that run, your body is pushing out more cortisol. So imagine your body as being like a bank account, right? And your stressors, your schedule kind of being on the go all the time, go, never like resting, just going from one thing to the next. And, those hard workouts, those are all like deposits from that bank account. And when you are managing your stress appropriately to where you have plenty of time where you are resting and recovering, you have plenty of space in your schedule where you are relaxing, you're feeling very like relaxed and restored and zen, that's like adding money into the bank account. Now, how many people are actually taking space to do that until they absolutely have to, right? Most people are running their bank account into the ground. They're putting themselves into overdraft. And so now they still have this pattern of, I go to the gym because that's like an identity piece of like, the gym is my therapy. I work out to manage my stress. That's identity for them. But now they're running in the negative in their bank account. Now they're in overdraft, right? Yet it feels good to them. They go to the gym, they do their workout class, and they feel that like temporary post-workout high, right? Because there's still the adrenaline, there's still some of those feel-good kind of hormones that are going to be circulating from that. And the reason is because now, if we're following that analogy of the bank account, going and doing that workout while your bank account is in overdraft, it's kind of like swiping your credit card, where it's like, it feels good in the moment. You're like, cha-ching, I bought the thing.
That's a good analogy.
I'm like, it feels good because I'm buying the thing. I'm ignoring the fact that I don't know how I'm actually going to pay for that thing yet. So the reality is, it's like you're just digging yourself deeper into debt. You're digging yourself deeper into the hole. You're feeling worse and worse over time because your body is going to start sending you the bill, right? And that's where, when I say it's like, now you're getting the bill for all these charges that are due, that is the symptom showing up. That is the weight gain. That is the brain fog. That is the fatigue. That is the gut issues, the low libido, just the feeling of
hair
like
loss, brittle nails,
all of that.
Stuff,
like it is the burnout from life. It is where you find yourself in this place where you're just like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like I'm not happy in my work. Maybe I'm feeling like kind of unhappy with my routines at home. Maybe you're just kind of starting to feel numb to life a little bit. That is physiological burnout.
And here's the other thing, because I go through this conversation all day, every day with a lot of the ladies that we talk to. And to your point, Vanessa, the whole purpose here is not to come in and like completely overhaul your life. That's not what we're saying. But what Vanessa is saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, is you really have to start taking all of these things into account, because if nothing changes, right? And unfortunately, a lot of the ladies that come and talk to us, or a lot of our listeners that are listening to this didn't just happen yesterday and now all of a sudden they're like, okay, like I just had this one symptom and it's never happened before. This is a compounding effect of years upon years of, under eating or restrictive approaches, or at times we tend to work with a lot of moms. And so they're like, well, my 2-year-old isn't sleeping throughout the night. And so I'm already tired and fatigued, and I work and I run the household and I do all these things. And then I'm also working out 5-6 days a week, right? I know last week or the week prior, we had talked about one of the ladies that we chatted with that was eating like a cup of like berries and a quarter cup of nuts in the mornings, and then walking like 10.5 miles per day. And on top of that, being a mom, and on top of that, working full time. And so again, the whole point is not to come in and overhaul your life, but it's just for you to kind of sit back and be like, okay, so like what Vanessa was saying, well, I've been in quote unquote burnout or debt, if you want to use the analogy, for quite some time. Well, no wonder my body's responding in this way, or no wonder I'm noticing the inflammation or the weight gain. And so now it's like, okay, it starts with us noticing what's going on, and then from there going back and being like, okay, well, what changes do I need to make? And again, the whole purpose is not to overhaul your life, but it's like, okay, let's look at nutrition. Let's look at stress management. Let's look at all these things. And I'm sure, Vanessa, you'll go into some of the things to work on managing stress. But it's just, again, as a reminder, you're not going to feel this stress. Your body has been feeling it, and it hasn't been, a day or two. It's been years or months of you feeling this way. So if we want to change the outcome, we really have to work on supporting your body first. Does that make sense?
Totally. And like the thing I want to emphasize too, the women who I am speaking to, the women who this really applies to, who have really perceived working out in the gym as this way of like managing their stress, as part of their identity, of like managing their healthy body, all these things, yet maybe you're starting to notice these types of symptoms, the weight loss resistance, the changes in your body, like your body's just not responding the way it used to, energy changing, all these things. The hardest piece of this, the hardest part, is truly accepting that these things that you've believed for so long are only positive and only serving you in these like positive ways are actually things we need to pull back on, and we need to change the way that we're using them. I was listening to, I spent a lot of time like reviewing calls within our company and everything, and I was reviewing a coaching call the other day, and this client who's been with us for I think 4 months or so now, she was sharing of like with her coach, she was like, honestly, when we first came into this and you gave me the plan, she was like, I really was like, I don't think that's gonna work. I don't think that's what I need. Like she was very like, oh, like, part of the plan involved very pulling hesitant. Back on exercise, eating more food, and she was just like, don't think that's gonna work for me, but I'm going to give it a try, because thankfully this is the type of open mind person where she can recognize that like, I'm feeling like that's not like what I feel like I should do and what I want to do, but I'm here. I recognize that this person is professional. I'm going to just put my trust into them and try it and see what happens. And if I like am, get to the other end and I've given it my all and ultimately like it doesn't work for me, then okay, now I know for sure
that this didn't work.
Ultimately though, guess what? 4 months in, she was telling her coach, I'm really surprised that this actually worked. I'm feeling a lot better. I'm like on the right track. We're making a lot of improvements. So many symptoms have improved.
Well, and here, let me interrupt for a second. So, I mean, logically speaking, though, think about it, right? So going back to the analogy of overspending and not knowing how much is in the bank, it's like, okay, well, if you stop overspending, meaning stop working out and overstressing your body, and now you are able to make more money or earn a bigger income in the nutrition aspect. Now, if you're giving your body more nourishment, I'm like, well, then why wouldn't that work?
Yeah.
Right?
100%. And so the goal here, like, I'm not creating this argument of you should not work out and you should never work out. Because
you've gotten a lot of feedback on that on Instagram.
People like to take things out of context. And, I think I like to believe like, never mind, we're not going to go down that conversation. The goal here is not to just like give up working out in the gym and like not allow it to be this like positive thing and a sanctuary for you in a lot of ways. It's truly about just redefining what is going to serve your body in this specific season. What does your body need right now? Because true strength is not just pushing through. And I think that's what we develop, especially as women. We are like, I can do all these hard things. I need to prove myself. I need to push through the struggle to prove my strength. But guess what? Pushing through is not strength. In reality is too, you're not really pushing through. All you're doing is pushing things down. You're just like turning a blind eye to like, I see that maybe there's some things going on in my body that like I don't love, and I hear you that maybe these things aren't serving me, but I'm just going to push that down. So you're not even pushing through, you're just pushing down. What we need to do instead is pause, listen to your body, listen to what your body is saying to you, and truly understand that like the best thing you can do for yourself right now is rest, is heal, walk, breathe, like really just allow your body to rebuild and reset and get back to a good place to where you can train hard again later and have a great response from it, have your body actually get stronger and better because your body can adapt to the stress rather than just get beaten down by the stress. So I want to talk about, what are some other ways that we can manage our stress appropriately? Because again, I think a lot of us, I've been in this situation myself. I know some of our coaches have been in this position before where it's like you don't even realize until you're there when someone maybe asks you of like, what do you do for stress management? And you're like, well, I work out and like, maybe like I go for walks, but like your walks are like power walking, listening to a podcast, making a work call, like multitasking. No, real stress management is not about escaping stress. It's not about numbing stress. And that's what a lot of those things are, is you're just distracting yourself from the stressors. When you go to the gym and you're like, got this loud music blasting, I'm focusing on what my body's doing, you're not actually managing stress. You are putting it aside for that hour that you're in the gym. That is all you're doing. So true stress management is actually about teaching your nervous system how to recover from stress. It's about building resiliency. It's about being able to experience the feeling of stress in your body, like notice when that feeling comes up for you and like actually experience it of like, okay, I'm going to breathe through it. I'm going to notice what's happening. And then I'm going to let it pass and I'm going to come back to baseline. That's
a great quote. So what is it? Real stress management isn't about escaping or numbing stress. It's about teaching your nervous system how to recover from it. Mm-hmm. Boom. At Vanessa Gillette or Pozo. Dang, I'm like, that's not your last name anymore.
Yeah, well, because it's about resiliency. Yeah. The goal is not about being stress-free. It's not like about like put yourself in this little bubble and be like, I can't manage stress. Like make an announcement to all your friends and family of like, nobody is allowed to stress me out because I am trying to manage my stress right now. Right. That's not how life works. The goal is not to eliminate stressors. The goal is to be able to manage stress appropriately. So let's talk about some actual stress management tools that actually rebuild your nervous system, allow your adrenals to recover and rebuild rather than further pushing yourself into that debt, further driving your adrenals into the ground. So number one, daily walking. Now, I want to like put a caveat with this. I did give the example of, I think a lot of women will say like, oh yeah, I walk. I use walking as stress management. But the reality is oftentimes like these women are like power walking. They're seeing it as like walking is my exercise. Like I got to burn my calories. Let me see how far, they got their Apple Watch turned on to see like what's my heart rate. How far did I walk? They're, probably like listening to something because they're like, I got to multitask.
The Vanessa G Fit cast, of course.
Well, yeah. Okay. Maybe we can do that. No, I'm just kidding. No, what I'm encouraging here is like relaxed, just steady rhythm walking, especially like outdoors, ideally not on the treadmill, although like I'll take treadmill over nothing, but like getting outside and actually just being present, treating it as like a moving meditation. And what I mean by that is when you're walking, truly try to be present. Notice where your mind goes of like, oh, if my mind's thinking about, something that happened today or thinking about something that happened last week. And like, I'm noticing a lot of like stressed feelings come up around that, like notice those and be like, take a breath and just let that pass by. And then be like, I'm going to notice things that are actually present right now. I'm going to notice, oh, look at that, beautiful tree right there. And like, or I'm going to notice this house I'm walking by. I'm going to like notice the sounds of the birds around me, like actually notice things in the present. And then when your mind wanders off again, now it's thinking about, something you have coming up later that day or next week or a conversation you need to have. And you're like back to this, like, oh, there goes my nervous system again. Just notice it. We're not pushing it away. We're not burying it down. We're not being like, oh, bad. Don't be thinking of, negative things. No, we're just noticing it. Breathe through it and be like, oh, okay, come back to the present. Like literally just do that again and again. That is so restorative to your body. And that is what actual stress management looks like. We're not pushing it aside and saying, I'm not going to think about these things for my walk. We're just like noticing when they come up. We're just getting curious about those patterns. And we're just reprogramming kind of our body's go, 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 do multiple things at once response.
One simple thing that I've started to do, and I'm not very good at it quite yet, just leaving your phone at home and just going for a walk without it. Because then you don't have the, I need to check this, or I need to look at my emails, I need to look at my text, or I got a call, or this or that. Just leave it at home, go for that 20, 30, 40-minute walk that Vanessa's talking about. And now you have no choice but to be present or in your own thoughts because you don't have that device that's messing with you.
Totally. Yeah. Because I also don't want to act like we're amazing with all these things either. These are things we have to actively remind ourselves to do. Like there's many times I go on walks and I'm like, let me, listen to voice memos and like voice memo people back. And then I'm like, you know what? Actually, I need this space to be more nervous system, restorative, relaxing for me right now. I'm not going to do that. And that is a just awareness tool for me.
Yeah.
Number 2, doing just some nervous system resets with breathing. So I really like box breathing, which is just the 4-4-4-4. So 4-second inhale, 4-second hold, 4-second exhale, 4-second hold, and just repeat that. Like visualize a box. That's great. Another really great one is physiological sighs. So that's a double inhale and then a long exhale.
Oh, like sigh as in like, that's
yeah. So literally think of, if you visualize like a toddler when they're having a temper tantrum, right? Like they're just having this total meltdown. And at the very end, after they're kind of done with their meltdown, have you ever noticed they'll do like this,
yeah.
Like that is a physiological sign. It's a natural response that we do as humans when we're our nervous system is just kind of relaxing and letting go. So we can do that. We can make ourselves do that too by just actually cueing, okay, let me do inhale, another inhale at the top, and then a long exhale.
Have you ever heard, I've seen moms, because we don't have kids yet, but I've seen moms that when their kids are starting to throw a tantrum, they're like, hey, honey, or son, whatever you call them, breathe. And I think that helps a ton too. So I wonder if that helps too with just the nervous system regulation.
It's really all about kind of that vagal tone. So the vagus nerve that runs between the brain and the gut kind of helps shift your body between different nervous system states. And a lot of that breath work is actually kind of creating that stimulation of that nerve in your neck. Huh. Number 3 on that list is somatic practices. So what I mean by this, and it's kind of putting several things into this category of somatic practices, this could look like stretching. This could look like gentle yoga. I like to, when I was working through this stuff, I had the Down Dog app, and I would use the yin yoga, which is I have no ties obviously to the Down Dog app, but highly recommend if you're working through this stuff because you can set it for 5, you could spend a very specific time period. You could say, I have 7 minutes to do yoga. I want it to be yin yoga. I want restorative meditative music to play. And I want it to focus on my hips because I'm feeling tight in my hips from sitting all day. And it'll just generate a little yoga flow and it's AI. So, but it'll be a video of a smooth flow for exactly those things. Huh. So recommend that if you're working through this stuff, because also during that time period, even something going to a yoga class, even though I was I could sign up for a yin yoga class. Sometimes it's you're exhausted. Just doing something like that out of the norm, out of the routine feels too much.
But even, if you think about it, for me, for example, I sit behind my desk for so many hours, and I know you do too, but if you have a 15-minute break and you're hey, I want a 7-8 minute yoga practice or session, then awesome. You don't have to leave your home and you can just do it right there.
Yeah. It really helps you break that all or nothing mindset. Another kind of way to do this somatic practice, you could lay on the floor with your legs at the wall. That can be really, really restorative for the body. You're doing that for 10 minutes is said to kind of be a reset for the nervous system. Number 4 on the list, kind of moving through here. So journaling. We also, sometimes I'll refer to this as nervous system mapping. So really taking time to, a lot of it starts by noticing. Notice when you're having this stress within the body, or again, maybe you're someone who're I don't really feel stressed. That might be that your body has numbed to it, which just means we even more need to explore how your body's really feeling and the sensations within your body and what's on your mind, different things. So a prompt you could use is when I feel X, that could be when I feel stress, when I feel anxiety, whatever is kind of that dominant thing that comes up for you. My default reaction is Y. Now, what would it look like to feel safe instead? And just explore that. Kind of ask yourself those questions and kind of explore what comes up for you in that direction. You could also journal about, your daily stress inputs and how your body reacted. So maybe like an end of day shutdown routine could be like, okay, what were some of the things that happened today that I noticed stress within my body? When did like the feeling of stress come up for me? And like something I think could be helpful, sometimes I'll work with people on, is even eliminating the phrasing of like, I am stressed or I was stressed or anything like that, because not making it this thing that you are and like this almost like reinforcing the identity piece of it, and more so actually separating yourself from it by saying it's something you experienced. Because it is. It's emotions are just like a thing that like flowed through your body at a certain point in time. It was just something you experienced, kind of like a wave that washes over you. Like I experienced that feeling of stress. Starting to separate yourself from it truly can also be very, very helpful. But the idea of doing this type of like nervous system mapping journaling practice where you're just like mapping out what were the stress inputs, how did my body react, all you're doing is just kind of like observing and noticing. And that's the goal, is just to notice patterns, because when we notice patterns, we naturally start to develop kind of agency within this. We naturally start to just actually see our role and see kind of where we can be like, oh, I noticed these things. Like, is there something external that I could just easily adjust and change? Or is it more likely, most of the time, is it something internal of like, oh, this thing always happens. I don't need to like change my work because I'm just stressed all the time with my work. I don't need to go that far. What I need to just notice is like, what are the thoughts that are coming up for me around this? What is like this demand and pressure I'm creating upon myself? Like, does that actually need to exist? Or is that something I'm just creating because I think it serves me in this way of like causing me to push harder, when in reality, I don't need to have that thought come up for me.
Yeah. And honestly, I think, because this is, to be totally transparent, I think this is a lot harder said than done. Mm-hmm. And I think, number one, it starts with awareness. And if you are somebody that, like Vanessa was saying, it has been just, for the lack of a better word, just numb, just numb to some of these feelings, I think it does very much start with awareness. But then two, I think sometimes you do need somebody else to be that third party that's non-biased, non-judgmental, to be like, hey, so here's kind of what the data is telling us. Maybe this is a lot more serious than we thought, or this is something that you really need to prioritize, because although you might not feel stress or anxiety or whatever comes from the situation you're in or the circumstances, I'm like, your body does, right? And I think that's where having that external help and support can make a big difference if you're not getting anywhere yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah. Last one on my list in terms of some additional ways you can work on actual true stress management, kind of work on replacing that activity of going to the gym as stress management, would be lymphatic practices. So this could look like dry brushing, gua sha, self-massage, really just something.
Is that how you say that? Gua sha?
Mm-hmm. Oh, how did you think it was said?
I don't know.
Try it. Give it a try.
What am I trying?
How did you think it was pronounced other than gua sha?
This is right now, Vanessa, stressing out my nervous system, so I will reframe my mind and not go into this.
So gua sha and these other lymphatic practices, what you're doing is you're helping actually calm the nervous system via the like sensory input, because what you're doing is you're helping push that lymphatic fluid.
You bought one for me, didn't you? A gua sha thingy?
I don't think I bought one for you. I just used mine on you one time.
Oh, okay. No, you got a tongue scraper for me. That's what it was. Never mind.
I buy him weird things sometimes that he never uses. These are really just like very grounding practices for the body in a traditional sense, because like even, if you go back to like really ancient times, there was a lot more like hands-on like practices with the body, because it's very, very nervous system. Why are you giggling?
Regulating. Well, because for people watching on the YouTube video, she's like making hand motions. It's just funny. I'm just a child.
You are a child sometimes, but I love you anyway. So yeah, just working on kind of like that detoxification also can be very helpful for the body as well. So ultimately, I think it really has to come down to looking at why are we having this pattern of turning to exercise as stress management? Why can't exercise just be what it is? It's exercise, which during certain seasons of your life and during certain seasons of your health journey, 100%, like you will have wonderful positive adaptations from that intense exercise. Right now, it might not be what your body needs. And we really need to make sure that we have the right tools in place to rebuild your nervous system and kind of almost like apply a different stimulus to the body in that way. So if you are like that person where right now you are really just like seeing the working out as a hard thing to give up because of like this identity piece and of like this worthiness piece of just like, I like really equate doing hard things to me being just like more like better ultimately. Like I'm more disciplined. I am more valuable. I am more worthy because I do hard things. I push hard in the gym. I can lift more than other people. I can run faster than other people. It's like I can't give up that piece of my identity. Like that's scary for you. I hear you and I see you because I have been there, girl. Like I have been there and so many of the women that I've worked with have been there too. But you have to truly work on noticing those thoughts and reframing it and recognizing that who you are and your worth is not tied to those things that you do. And working on healing, that is not like this path to laziness. Healing is not lazy by any means. I would argue for a lot of people, healing work is some of the hardest work, and that's why a lot of people don't do it. But healing is not laziness. Stillness is not weakness. Truly, like you don't have to earn rest. You need the rest. You need that to be able to show up fully in your life and to let your body recover and let your body heal and get back to that place. So I hope that, this episode was helpful for you. I hope it was educational and inspirational. If it's something that you are realizing that you might need this right now, or you're realizing like you're on that path to where you just have this relationship with exercise where you see it as stress management, truly, I would urge you to bring some awareness to that. Doesn't mean you have to give up exercise, but don't align exercise as stress management. Recognize that exercise is stress. That doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It is a form of stress, and acknowledge how much stress you have in your life and how capable is your body at handling stress right now, and then work on acquiring true stress management practices. So thank you so much for listening. We'll be back next week with another great episode.
Bye, everybody.